What's up, guys? I thought we'd talk a little bit about the health insurance scam today. And now, I personally believe that all of insurance is a scam, but particularly with the health insurance, it's extra insidious. So, first of all, the health insurance companies don't actually provide the service of healthcare, right? Just like a government doesn't actually provide the service of building a road, for instance. All they do is handle the billing. And of course, they get paid to handle this billing. Insurance companies do, especially. That's all they do. They take the money and they give it to the providers, right? So they're providing insurance that they're going to be able to handle the billing for you in the event of you getting sick or anything. So you have to separate out, first of all, the trauma care part of it from the health care part of it, because as we know, the health care itself is a scam, right? We know that doctors can't actually cure you of any chronic diseases. They can't even cure heartburn, they can't cure cancer, right? All they have is drugs, surgery, and tests, all of which is covered by insurance, none of which actually cures you or really fundamentally helps you, right? And I hope that's absolutely clear. All these tests, they're very, very expensive, most of them, and there's no test that actually helps you, right? There's no test that actually gives your body what it needs to heal itself. The only thing that a test gives is information to base a protocol on, and in the doctor's case, all they have is drugs and surgery or another test to follow that up, right? So that itself is a lot of money. It's eating up a lot of our health insurance budget. This is both with private insurance, especially in America, or with public insurance in Canada, for instance. It's covered by this insurance, and this is just a wheelhouse, and it's not like doctors are doing everything for insurance, but the fact is they get paid everything based on insurance, right? People aren't going in cash paying for an MRI, right? If you don't have insurance, you're probably not getting an MRI. In our country, Canada, people use this service to the extent that they abuse it, to the extent that they will go into a doctor for a head cold or for whatever, a test or a checkup or something, when they don't really need it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't get checkups, but a lot of our message is that you can actually check yourself up, right? There's less than $100 worth of equipment in a doctor's office, in a regular, you know, general practitioner's office. You can buy all that stuff yourself. You could buy a blood pressure cuff yourself. You could go to the pharmacy and get your blood pressure checked for free. You can go to the pharmacy and get all the little test strips that they have. You can test yourself for whatever you need. You could order yourself a blood test. You don't actually, like, if you knew that you wanted a blood test or a hair analysis or something to show you what's going on in your body, you don't need to go to a doctor for them to give you permission to go get a blood test. You could do that yourself, right? And a lot of us are just trained to go to the doctors, and every time we go to the doctors, no matter what we go for, health insurance covers that, right? So the reason it's a scam is because it doesn't actually provide a service. It's only based on the fear that we're not going to be able to pay for it, either as individuals or as a society, right? Cover the bill of actual healthcare. And I do believe without the insurance payments there, and the pressure from the insurance company, to and the pressure from the medical establishment to use the insurance companies to pay their bills, right? Without that, I think that they might actually be more responsible. But I do think that we would actually be more responsible if we didn't have the insurance, right? If that makes sense. I mean, if we had to take it upon ourselves to be as healthy as we possibly can, and we wouldn't really need doctors, right? All these things that we're going to the doctors for later, whether it's a cold or something, or a chronic degenerative disease, these are all the results of chronic improper care of our health. Now, we would say that also that the medical establishment is partially responsible for this because we weren't educated on it, right? And we have a medical monopoly that only teaches drugs and surgery and tests. And so that's all we know too, right? All we know is go to the doctor, and all we get is drug, surgery, and tests. Meanwhile, it should have been their responsibility to keep us healthy. And if we were a sane society, we would demand a medical establishment that was actually there to oversee health rather than to treat sicknesses and treat problems, right? And this is why we separated healthcare from the trauma care, from the emergency care, because there is a role to play for us getting hit by a car and stuff like that, right? That's not our fault, right? But it is actually our fault if we get sick. And since we're all under the care of the medical establishment, it's actually their fault for not giving us this information. And they're not to blame because they don't have the information either. And this is why now it's up to us to take responsibility, to realize that the medical monopoly can't really help us with most of the things that we go to for them. and we have to actually be healthy ourselves. It's our responsibility. It's not actually the doctor's responsibility to make you healthy. Again, it would be if they knew and this was part of the education system, but this is why we're here right now, and this is why we do what we do, educating people to take care of themselves, right? And by the way, I don't have insurance. I'm a Canadian citizen, and my health insurance was cut off for me being out of the country too long or whatever. And since then, everybody's been bugging me, not everybody, but many people have been bugging me to get health insurance again. And I keep saying I don't need health insurance, right? And there's two reasons for that. Number one, I gotta have faith that I'm not gonna get hit by a car. And it sounds blind, but I don't think I'm gonna get hit by a car. And if I do, I think I'm gonna be taken care of, right? I think I am actually gonna go to a hospital. I think they are gonna take care of me. And I think if I do get billed for it, I'm gonna figure out that bill, right? And to me, I would rather figure out that bill than promote reason two, which is bankrupting our society in Canada to have this whole health insurance thing. I don't want to support the health insurance even by validating it that I need it, right? I don't want to have it just in case. Just in case if something happens, we can figure it out, right? I also don't have stacks of water. I'm in a hotel room right now, but at home I don't have like stacks of water preparing for disaster. I don't want to prepare for a disaster. I don't want to believe that a disaster is going to happen. I want to believe that the perfect outcome is in order, and I don't want to fear. I don't want to be living in fear, right? So this whole insurance thing, it's based on fear, right? And this is how they sell life insurance and stuff as well. Well, what if something happens? You got to leave it to your loved ones. Well, what if I take responsibility for my own life and my own finances, and I figure out that I'm going to leave something to my loved ones, right? Not pay into something, pay into a tax, essentially, just in case. I don't like that. And life insurance might pay out, right? To me, it doesn't matter. This is avoiding the responsibility of me making it successful enough to have something to leave to my whatever people myself, right? And it's the same thing with health. It's up to me to be healthy. It's up to me to be careful, right? I don't want to get hit by a car. I don't want to get in a car accident. It's up to me to drive carefully. Of course, things can happen, but you can get sideswiped. You can have an accident, that you're not responsible for, and that's okay too, right? And I have to just have the faith that it's going to work out. Now, this is dismissing health insurance in its totality, right? This isn't it, like this is same with car insurance, house insurance, right? We actually don't have house insurance on our house, right? What if it burns down? What if it burns down, right? What? If it did burn down, what would happen? We would get a payout. We would get a lottery, of some kind. And it's not really going to fix the damage, truthfully. I mean, to the personal effects and that kind of stuff. And to me, paying insurance for your whole life just doesn't add up to the value of a house, right? It adds up to more than the value of a house, right? I would rather have lower bills on my house, and I would rather be careful and try not to burn it down, And again, this sounds blind to a lot of people, and whatever, I don't believe that my house is going to burn down. I don't believe that I'm going to get in a car accident. And I think that faith is very important for living your life, and understanding that if you are driving your life correctly, a lot of these things won't happen. Things still will happen. People will die. Accidents will happen. But I believe that actually is so minimal compared to all the things that we fear, right? And it's very minimal compared to all the things that we pay for in health insurance, in car insurance, in house insurance, right? Keep in mind too, we're being asked to pay insurance on all these different things, and most likely only one of them is going to happen, right? You pay house insurance, health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, and what are the odds that my house and my car is going to burn down, kind of thing, right? So it's not just house insurance. These are taxes on your life, right? And they increase the cost of your life as well, the cost of living your life, right? Me not paying house insurance reduces the cost of my life. Now I can use that money to build my life, right? I can use that money for good rather than just giving it to an insurance company. And again, what does the insurance company do? It handles the bills in case of an emergency, right? So why am I not responsible enough to handle my own bills? Why is my society like what? Right? We have health insurance, but it's there to bill things. Why not have something like that where the society actually it does have money just in case something happens, right? It does have the money to fix things if things break, right? We do have this. We have fire departments, right? Stuff like that. We can go in and fix a road if something happens to it. This doesn't have to be an insurance thing. And I really don't believe in having these bodies like governments or like insurance companies that are just there to handle it, right? I mean, this is not to say that human beings couldn't get together and take responsibility for things when they do happen, right? Maybe the town hall does burn down. Maybe the town gets together and they pool up the resources to get it done. People volunteer, company volunteers say, hey, we'll do the work on that, for whatever. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't necessarily need this formalized structure of fear and what if and we'll handle the bills. What if? But we make billions of dollars, anyways, right? So I don't like that extra money there, and I don't think it's worth it. And especially with health insurance, I don't think it's worth it either. So further than that, health insurance, by the way, just on the cost of this is the further than that. In America, there's NAFTA, which actually gave companies the incentive to outsource jobs, to bring jobs elsewhere, to India, to Mexico, to Canada, basically to places that they don't have to pay health insurance for their employees for. And this is very, very important, because when an American employer decides to hire somebody, they have to factor in the health insurance that they're going to pay for it, right? In Canada, that's not the case. We just give all this tax money, and that all gets wasted basically on healthcare. A lot of it gets wasted on healthcare. By the way, I think a lot of it gets wasted on armies too. I think a lot of it gets wasted on construction contracts and stuff like that, where the companies that are doing it, and anybody in a trade, by the way, they probably mention at some point that when you work for the government, it's a much different job than when you work for a private enterprise, because the private enterprise is actually going to want you to do it efficiently and effectively and cost effectively. Whereas the government doesn't necessarily have that incentive. They have the incentive to spend the budget, right? If a government or police department or something, a teachers union, if they don't spend their budget, they might not be able to get that same budget next year. That's the fear, right? They want to spend their entire budget. Again, anybody in a teachers union or something like that this, that you have to spend the whole budget to be able to apply for that same budget or an increased budget next year, and that's what they want. Whereas a private enterprise is going to say, we want to minimize the cost expenditures. So if you're a tradesperson, you're going to go in and you're going to be actually asked, you're going to be under pressure to do it efficiently and effectively and cost efficiently. Now this could translate too much in the opposite way, where private enterprise skimps, right, cuts corners and stuff like that. Well, there is room for oversight, and there is room for responsibility in the people doing the work, the people asking for the work, whatever. And it's up to us to actually understand which businesses are responsible. Like, what if we knew that a certain hotel chain skimped on their construction materials and stuff like that? That would be a business that we shouldn't support, right? We should support good business. We should support smart businesses and businesses that are actually out to promote our well-being. Now, this has nothing to do with health insurance. Health insurance does not promote our well-being. Keep in mind, insurance companies get paid more if we're sick, right? Obviously, doctors and insurance, they are incentivized for you to be sick, right? They don't get paid if you're healthy. This is a big problem, right? Because I do believe that incentive is actually behind a lot of human motivation, and if it's not incentive to make us healthy, then what is it, right? Either it's incentive to, or it could possibly neglect our health, or they could be recommending things that we don't need, which we know happens. We know we get recommended tests, drugs, and surgeries that we don't actually need and that don't actually cure us, right? So it's not really necessarily good for our health. So back to America and its employment problem. And if you drive around America and you talk to people and you have any idea what it used to be like, there used to be manufacturing jobs here. And now there's a lot of, I'm in America right now, there's now a lot of cities that are kind of scary places, that don't have that industrial base anymore, because that industrial base, those good jobs, have been outsourced to Mexico, to Canada, right? To other places. And you can pay a Canadian good job, right, much less than an American, because our country covers the health insurance for the American employer, right? Most people have no idea how much stuff we produce in Canada. We're America's biggest importer, right? We export the most stuff to America out of any other country. Why? It's not because our labor is really that much cheaper. It's not because our material is that much cheaper. It's because the Canadian government covers the health insurance and the American employer doesn't. This is huge, right? This is why our industries are doing quite well and America's are not. And again, it's the same in Mexico, except you don't get exactly the same skilled labor and the same confidence, in a lot of the manufacturing. This is just from what I hear and stuff, and it makes sense, right? Mexico as a country doesn't have its stuff together as well as Canada does, so it can't produce a labor force for good jobs as well as Canada does. And so it could be worth it to pay a Canadian more than a Mexican, but it's still less than an American. And this is not in the dollar per hour figure, this is in the health insurance per month figure or per year figure. And this is why there's a big problem with jobs in America, with good jobs in America. So this is the insurance scam, guys. It's robbing us of our personal responsibility. It's incentivizing our medical system to not promote the utmost of our health, right? The incentive is the opposite way. It's to treat our sicknesses. And it's bankrupting us. It's bankrupting our societies, paying too much for insurance premiums, paying too much for stuff that we don't need. And we could definitely be using this money to have a better society, in my belief. So I just want to say in closing that actually in the health business, like in this, we sell supplements and stuff like that, and we promote a healthy lifestyle. Our incentive is actually to get you as healthy as possible, because if we don't, you're not going to rebuy the products, right? If the protocol fails with you, you're not going to rebuy the products. We don't get to bill an insurance company for treatment, right? We don't want to treat. We want you to actually be healthy. We want you to be feeling good, because you as a conscious customer, as a conscious consumer, you have to be spending your money wisely. And if you're not getting the result, then spending more money on supplements isn't exactly that wise to a logical person, right? So these incentives really do matter. And I do believe that, again, private businesses like ours, like our whole industry, the whole health industry, this is alternative health is what it's known as, right? Because healthcare is really only doctors and surgeons and drug dealers, right? But the whole health business actually, it does have the incentive to help you get better. And they don't all know what they're doing. They don't all know what they're talking about. But this is, again, up to our personal responsibility to sort these things out, to choose what works, to try what works, right? And so I do believe it's much more cost effective for us as a society to be healthy and to be careful, and even with car accidents and that kind of stuff, there are lots of technologies being developed to minimize car accidents, and that can improve as well, right? This is not going to say that this is a perfect world, or it's ever going to be, or that accidents are always going to be avoided. It's not the case, right? Houses are still going to burn down, that's true, but I do believe that we can come up with better ways of handling it, rather than paying an insurance company to cover the cost based on fear, that we're not going to be able to cover it ourselves. And again, I don't mean personal individuals, I mean the society. I think that we can find a better way. And even just some of these ideas that we've talked about here, I don't think that that's the final answer. I think that we're smarter together, and a lot of people are smarter than me, and we can come up with better ideas of how to do this, rather than paying the insurance mafia or the government mafia and incentivizing people to keep us sick, basically, or to fail to make us healthy. So that's all I've got to say on this for now, guys. I appreciate you, I love you, respect you. Let me know if there's anything else that you want me to make a personal video on this. Someone asked me to speak more on the insurance thing, so this is why I'm doing this. And I'm happy to do more of these types of talks, because they get a lot of ground covered. So until next time, guys.